as promised, today I wanted to talk to you about hand and stick technique. There's a lot of different literature online, a lot of misinformation and a lot of good information, but maybe not necessarily the best information. Mine may not be the best information for you either. I kind of just wanted to share my feelings on the topic, the two topics, and what works for me. And it has changed over the years. I grew up playing very rudimental style, very rigid marching band, traditional style. And as I've gotten older, playing more shows that were longer, maybe more shows that involved more technicality than the rudimental snare drum stuff. And I mean, drum set is a whole different animal, so it requires a different technique. And the majority of what I play is drum set. So here's kind of my thinking on the subject. First, as far as stick technique, the way I approach holding a drumstick is mostly influenced by a clinic I saw with Todd Zuckerman. Ever since I've seen him play when I was in the 6th grade, he's pretty much been my favorite drummer. And then later on in life, I was lucky enough to meet him and attend one of his clinics. And at that clinic, he said the way that he approaches holding a drumstick, it's kind of the same as if you have a dog and your dog pees on the rug and you say, "Bad dog." You know, you see that motion there, like that. I basically take the drumstick and put it in that same position, bad dog. So you see my index finger is not wrapped completely around the stick like a club, and also I'm not completely rigid like I'm punching with this drumstick in my hand. More so, it's a very loose motion, very not rigid motion. What this allows for is the stick to bounce quite freely in my hands, and it works the same on the left hand. If you're playing traditional grip, which I do sometimes, I still try to hold the stick fairly loose. There is a different method to playing in the traditional grip, and I will talk about some different grips as well. But the biggest thing for me is to not hold the sticks too tight. If I hold the sticks too tight, I find that I seriously hurt my hands every time I play if I'm holding the sticks too tight. It seems counterintuitive because obviously you don't want your sticks to fly out of your hand. At the same time, you don't want to hold them so tight that they couldn't. You want to be in the gray area between holding it just tight enough but not too tight. And so for me, what works, like I said, is that kind of grip where my index finger is just kind of there. I'm not using it to propel the stick so much as I am stopping it from flying all the way down. It's just there. My bottom 3 fingers are actually what's taking the brunt of the motion here when I'm moving the stick back and forth. My index finger is just kind of there as a support, not so much pushing and pulling on the stick. Thumb is the same way. I'm not pushing with my thumb because that creates tension in your forearms. So because I'm not pushing with that, the stick can bounce back freely, especially on the cymbals. Now the drums, the heads are more pliable than a cymbal, which is metal. If you lay into the bell of a cymbal with your thumb locked on here, you'll know it immediately. And some cymbals are heavier than others, obviously. And I'll do another video on cymbals. This, for me, is very important because I find that the more tension I put in my thumb, the worse my hand feels immediately. I mean, literally the first couple hits, if my thumb is too tight on there, done deal, show's over for me. So in an attempt to not do that, my thumb and index finger just kind of guide the stick, not so much as help push and pull the stick. If I do it that way, it's not good. So this is also kind of what's known as the Tony Williams technique. It's a little bit different. In the Tony Williams technique, which Todd Zuckerman also spoke about when I saw him, Tony Williams actually, the index finger was almost completely pointing straight out, and the middle finger was the one that was kind of the guide there, and Tony used his bottom 2 fingers to do everything. And I find that I don't have quite as much control with that. So that said, I'm going to do a short little performance on using the techniques so you can kind of see, and then I'll get into something else. As you saw in the video, my hands were loose. I was pretty much free to play as fast as I wanted to. If your grip is tight on your drumstick, there's only so fast you can play because your muscles can only respond so fast. So you have to rely on the stick to do some of the work for you. And the older I've gotten, that's one of the things I've learned since I was younger that's been most helpful, is letting the stick do the work for me. I used to play a much smaller, thinner drumstick, and as I've gotten older, pretty much seemed like every couple of years I upgrade to a bigger and bigger size. The sticks I currently play are made by Jeff Rich at Custom Drumsticks. He's an independent stick maker out of New Hampshire, I believe is where he lives. And he hand selects the hickory, and then he takes custom orders, so you can pretty well get any kind of stick you want. So I tend to always kind of stayed around the 5B. Briefly played some 3A, went back to the 5B, and then up from there to sticks a little bit bigger than the 5B, the Vic Firth SD9, the Todd Zuckerman ProMark model, which is a great drumstick. I just wanted something that with a little more beef to it, so I'd ordered 2 different orders from Jeff Rich previously, and then now I'm on the 3rd batch. And these sticks are 16 3/4 inches long. They've got an acorn tip and a pretty hefty shaft here. So it's a lot of, they call it front-loaded weight. It's a lot of weight on the front end, so that stick falls easier. I don't have to put as much force to play as hard. And then it also, because it's dropping on its own, it bounces back easier for me than I don't have to pull the stick back up because it's already, the physics is working for me instead of against me, as if I were using a much smaller stick. Now, there are drummers who play smaller drumsticks, and there's nothing wrong with it. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, this is just what works for me. These videos I'm doing here are supposed to be kind of like my first 4 or 5 lessons that I normally would teach in my lesson studio at Hearst Music. So since I'm not teaching right now, I thought it might be a good idea to just put them up for free. Just to get information out there, be as helpful as I can during this weird, crazy time. So back to the topic. Anybody who's had lessons with me knows this is kind of how the lessons go too. I'll derail a little bit, and then I kind of come back, and then I'll derail the other way and kind of come back. Videos are liable to do the same because I'm the same teacher. So back to the technique. The holding with your fingers is one thing. The types of sticks you use is going to affect your playing, what works best for you. But thirdly, and as equal important as how you hold the stick, is how your wrists move. You can't have your wrists tight and then your fingers be loose and have any kind of success playing. It's counterproductive. So I learned the Mahler technique, which I know is a scary term. A lot of drum teachers try to shy away from it. John Wooten doesn't even call it Mahler technique. He calls it common sense. And basically, you want your wrists to be as loose as possible and as comfortable as possible, therefore allowing for maximum potential in movement. If anywhere here is locked, in your elbow, your forearm, if you can see your forearm muscle sticking out while you're playing all the time, I mean, you might see it flex, but if it's solid and tense all the time, the rest of your hand probably is too. If your wrist is locked, if you're playing like this, there's no way that your hand is not absorbing every single hit and every bit of shock from that hit every time you strike the drum. So you want to make sure everything on your body is loose. You want to be sitting comfortably. You want your arms, you don't want to be playing something way up here. You don't want to be playing way too low. One, you hit your thighs, and two, you're just playing too far down. I keep my snare drum about equal with my belly button. It's a little high for some people, but for me it's pretty comfortable, especially because I play traditional grip. I don't have to work too hard to do rim shots, and also I don't hit my thighs with either hand doing rim shots. It's very comfortable. It took some getting used to. I've only done that in the last 3 or 4 years, but my playing for me has felt a lot more comfortable. So when you drop your arm, nothing should tense up when you drop it. It should be just a clean stroke, straight down. And by the way, right now I do have an extra drum head on top of my snare drum. That's just to deaden the sound a little bit because my camera is so close. So if you notice it's sounding funny, or you hear a little bit of the two heads colliding, that's what it is. My snare drum is not broken. My head is not too loose. I have an extra head on top just for dampening purposes. So straight up and down motion. I know you can only see my right arm right now. But nothing is tense, and I'm not having to work too hard to get any of this done. And so this motion here, this whipping motion, is what's part of the Muller technique, and it should be like somebody's pulling me from my bracelet. That ligature point right there, straight up and down. And as I'm doing that, the bottom of the stick is kind of whipping back. This is more dramatic than what it's actually doing, but that stick acts like a pendulum. And because my fingers aren't clubbing this stick, I'm not having to pull it up like this. It's doing the work for me, which is what we want. I don't tend to play things that have to be that fast, so I don't work incredibly hard at that aspect of it very seriously, because I'm not just playing single stroke rolls just for the sake of playing single stroke rolls. Everything I teach and everything I play, I try to do it, and everything I practice for myself, it's something that I implement in my day-to-day drumming. I'm never going to be the fastest drummer. I'm never going to be the best drummer. I try to be the best drummer I can be every single day. I try to learn something new as often as I can. I don't learn something new every day, and that's the point of these videos for anybody who has had the idea to start drumming. Anybody who's already picked up a pair of sticks and said, where do I start? I really enjoy taking new students, and so that these are kind of going to be my first couple lessons for anybody interested in learning the basics and getting a head start. Normally I charge for lessons. I'm doing this because I want to do it. I want to make it available to people. I don't want to put it online and say, here, pay $5 and go watch this video. I want it to be free to anybody who wants to learn. So hopefully I'll be back tomorrow or the next day maybe with another lesson. Hope you enjoyed this one, and hope to see you next time.